Easy. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners Workshop. Please join me for the pledge of the flag.
Flag, United States of America. The Republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Righty. So first up, we have Vince with the review of the modification of record plan for Simca.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in before Vince and Brian start to review this part. You may remember up on Grange Road, there is a development that we've seen numerous times in front of the board for worship center as well as an apartment. You may remember that there were certain presentations, this was probably a year ago, on timing and phasing of the project and asking for various relief for items to the approved plan. So what we have before you this evening to discuss is another request now from the applicant and the original developer to now phase this plan, phasing this plan to include the already constructed residential units and then the worship area to be in the new phase. So years ago, this was brought in 4 or 5 years ago. It was the complete opposite. The worship area was phase 1. The residential was phase 2. We've asked for the applicant to come back and submit a phasing plan, both through the office here. This is the result of the discussions with the staff, and I'll let Vince and Brian kind of jump in on anything I missed.
All right, yeah, thank you, Bruce. Just to explain, just a little more nuts and bolts. So this land development was originally approved on June 16th of 2016 and subsequently recorded on November 13th of 2019. So as you can see, they have submitted a phased plan. The applicant's proposing to modify the recorded plan from 2019 and separate the construction project into 2 phases. Phase 1 consists of the community house, and phase 2 consists of the worship house. As you can see on the plan, the dotted line, the thick dotted line on the top corner, thank you, Renee, is what they are proposing as phase 2. That is where the footprint of the worship house sits. So in the original plan, the 2 buildings were attached. What they have done is only built the 1 building. So the community house was constructed and it is at the final building inspection phase right now, or I should say stage. I don't want to confuse those 2. The project improvements on the land development are approximately 85% complete. They do have their top coat on all the parking area. We do have a punch list that was prepared by CKS in November. So again, like I said, they are about 85% complete. The phasing would allow the applicant to complete the final building inspection for the community house without the need to first complete construction of the worship house. So at part of our review, we'll be asking the resolution would approve approving the modification for phasing. Also, they would have to submit all amended land development, financial security, stormwater, O&M agreements. They would have to revise their NPDES permit. The applicant has received comments from LCCD at this point on instruction on creating a phase plan, so that way the property will be in compliance. Staff would also recommend the amended development agreement include a date that all construction and improvements for the place of worship under phase 2 will be completed. If it's not completed, then phase 2 would need to come back for a new approval. And we're trying to prevent phasing plan that will never be complete. The other portion of that we'd like them completed is a crosswalk, which would provide a safe crossing for patrons in the case of overflow parking, which is required now or in the future when the parking may be needed when they are completing the improvements for the worship house. One other thing in going back, looking through the agreements, the approved plan. We would also require Bet Simca provide verification of a written agreement with the owner of 1183 Grange Road, which was formerly the Trexlertown Grange. To provide the overflow parking that is currently noted on the recorded plan. However, we have no agreement for that. And then ultimately, the applicant will have to comply with any comments of the township staff and CKS engineer letter. So we do not have these letters prepared currently. They're drafted, but we were looking for feedback from the board to see if this was, the phasing plan was amendable at this point.
This is not the original applicant.
It is still the original applicant, yes.
I was under the assumption, I had heard that it was no longer going to be a synagogue, a different denomination.
It is still Bet Simca, and it is Rabbi Glenn Blank, that is the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, he reached out as recently, what, last week?
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday, yeah. Or not yesterday, Friday, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a relatively straightforward, should be a relatively straightforward process. It's just kind of awkward because they're not really done, but they're close. And it's taken a long time to get point across to the applicant that your agreement with the township is to have everything done. It's not a phased plan, so they finally got a phased plan in, and we'll be generating a review and kind of trying to delicately explain to them what they need, because what they have on the plan is not very clear, but it can be with hopefully a little bit of help.
Yeah, so to Brian's point, they have been, I'll say, kicking this around since 2021. And it's finally come to fruition, to kind of put their feet to the fire because of the completion of the other bill. So, our major concern is timeline and how we can hold them to that timeline, that we don't end up with one building when we have a recorded plan for two. I want to end up with 1, 10, 12, 15 years down the road. That's our major concern for this.
Right.
And I think for me, I wanted to make sure, staff brought that in front of the board and we had this conversation as Vince said, they're nearing that completion stage of the first building for that certificate of occupancy. If it's not the will of the board to move forward or even consider potential phased plan, we wanted to just kind of make sure we were headed in the right direction. That's why you don't have the follow-up letters yet and some of the other items. So this was more to kind of gauge what the board thought and as a staff, make sure we were headed in the right direction. So.
Any other commissioner questions or comments?
Okay, now, from a zoning perspective, the reason they can put this here is because it is a church. Right? And in the suburban zone, would the apartments by themselves be permitted?
So there is a worship house within in the community house.
No, I understand that as a package deal. But if the apartments are built and the church is not, then is that really compliant with zoning?
Well, so I don't have the answer for you. Let me put it that way, right? I can look. But what I can tell you is there is a worship center within the community house, along with
In the residential.
in the residential that's standing now. There is a worship space that they are going to be using to worship. And that was part of the original plan. And those won't get converted to apartments until the standalone worship house then is created. So right now they own that was, and I didn't explain that, so that's I apologize about that. Right now, there are less apartments than what they put on the plan. There is a worship area that they're planning to use so the congregation can worship there in what we call the community house now. So they will be worshiping in that. There just will be apartment to supplement that community house.
So you have the use of the worship center established in that current building. So you would meet it for that component.
Correct. And the apartment would still be an accessory because the worship part of that building would be the primary.
Okay.
And then at that phasing portion, that community house would then be turned into the apartment. So all the worship would go to the new. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mark.
Good. Move on to review bids for paving equipment. Doug?
Thank you. We had an RFP for paving equipment rentals. Fortunately, we had no bids. Some of our previous vendors, we reached out to them again, and some of the reasons why they said due to the weather, they didn't have time for their bids, so we will end up putting it out for a bid again. We anticipate we'll have more bids for the next round. The second one is we had an RFP for tree services. We sent out bids to 10 companies were emailed, 5 acquired back. Fortunately, only one company bid, that was Bartlett Tree Services. The price is substantially higher than previous vendor, but with that said, that is just an estimate. We determine what trees get cut, where they get cut. The difference with this is the previous vendor would dispose of all of byproduct waste tree burns at our center, and we had remove it ourselves and charge them back out of our compost center, so it was actually double work for us. So those are the two bids, one bid.
Any questions for Doug?
Yeah, just out of curiosity. Do we know why we only had one bid? I mean, is that common or is there a reason for that?
I do not know why. The only thing we changed was that they are responsible to dispose of the products themselves. That could have to do with it. I guess the previous vendor could not handle that capacity. So head off our center.
I was thinking similar line. A lot more equipment
They
to
were,
handle bigger jobs.
yeah, from my understanding, the gentleman who did it previous years was a one-year show. Opposed to street might take him 3 days, it might take us a couple hours. But we have more control of what they do.
Move on to review draft resolution renaming Service Road 2 to Hamilton Circle. Bruce?
Yes, we talked about this several times now. Just to kind of refresh the background, when the bypass went in, the roadway near Holiday Inn and ABE Stone kind of got left as Service Road number 2. Both of the businesses there were using Hamilton Boulevard addresses from its previous life before the bypass. We thought it'd be beneficial to name this road now, eliminate some confusion, especially for emergency services and those looking for those facilities while they're driving around Hamilton Boulevard trying to find them. So Renee, Vince, and I actually did some outreach, stopped at both businesses, told them that exact story, asked them if they could work to accommodate. We know in the business community they would have a ton of paperwork to change, and it seemed like both businesses were willing to kind of assist in renaming that street. We were looking at another name, but we told them it would be flexible and we would take names that they would suggest. They actually submitted to the township Hamilton Circle. So we would recommend to the board that you consider a resolution to rename Service Road 2 into Hamilton Circle. both of those facilities would get new addresses, of course, a Hamilton Circle address. We've done our due diligence with the county 911 as well to make sure that would be okay. That's where we are on the circle. While we talk to those businesses, they also ask for some wayfinding signage out there. It seems like they're on a little bit of an ocean, so we're also looking at some additional signage. But we're hopeful that if the board considers this, we'll be able to get the signage posted now for a street, and hopefully maps will get updated on the Google side. So just want to make sure the board was okay at some point in the near future. We'll have that on an agenda for consideration.
Any questions on naming Service Road 2 at Hamilton Circle? All right, Bruce, review draft resolution naming a portion of Sauerkraut Lane and Compost Center Road.
Yeah, so with the Sauerkraut Lane Extension Project, of course, there is a new section of roadway that is from Spring Creek to the park. That component, we wanted to make sure that we establish the new road as Sauerkraut Lane so that we can get that started. So this, of course, includes that Spring Creek to the park area as Sauerkraut Lane, naming it. We will name once the other component gets completed from 100 down towards the railroad track crossing now. We'll eventually describe and name that once it comes online. The other component of this, we heard feedback from the board that the compost center roadway fitting name would be Pork Lane. So we have in there that that would be the name considered for that area. We are still working on the existing Quarry Lane side that meets 100 now. We talked about this, I think, 3 or 4 workshops ago. We'll do some resident outreach to those 6 residents when we get to that point. But for now, we wanted to get it named. And one of the big reasons, the compost center building, working to establish the gas service and the electric. And of course, they're going to need an address to get that started. So for us to hit our April deadline for having that UGI service in, we want to have the board consider this at the first meeting in March, and then we'll be able to have our address and can go forward. So unless anybody wants it named something different or like Compost Lane or something of that nature, let us know.
Any questions or comments regarding name changes?
Building back, the electric in. It will be heated up.
Yeah, so it's in process, working on permits, and then they've run the overhead out from Sauerkraut Extension to the area of the building to the cul-de-sac. So we'll look to, like I said, finish permitting and then schedule that install, make sure that we're in a good spot.
Okay, when we schedule that install, we're gonna that building complete. We're gonna put out for bids because I think once you put that service into the building, instead of just keeping up that circuit breaker with wire, lights, heat, security, but
We did,
one and that would be involved planning. Not that they're back and forth, back and forth. I'd rather, in my opinion, I'd rather building complete electrically than piecemeal.
We agree. However, knowing that our bid time here, getting something out in another 60 days, 90 days by the time bids would come back and we would have that component, we're going to miss our opportunity for gas. So we've thought a little more basic, get in, set the panel up, make sure we have enough for heat in there. And then when we can really drill down and incorporate those items that, as you're saying, all of those are good, valid things. That gives us a little more time, but we would prefer it all gets done in one shot. However, we know we're under that deadline and we may not make it for gas service. If we don't make the gas service, we're at like 44,000 on what we have to pay the gas company for the line extension. So mission critical on that component. Um, and we're happy that PPL has moved out on the lines. At least my fear on my end was we would not have electricity out there at some point and then not be able to get the gas. So, yeah, but understood though, we don't want to waste resources on doing things as well.
And I was speaking just electric, because that would dictate the sizing of the service entrance and panel that we
Yeah,
wanted.
we beefed the panels up in preparation, overhead garage doors, outlets.
Did that go out for bid? Those, 2 years back, that any job that exceeded a certain amount of money
It's,
that we would bid out,
It's,
competitive bidding,
yeah, it's not at this point.
I believe. My opinion, most jobs should go out for bid.
Yeah, there are bid thresholds for, you know, municipalities. $22,600 is the threshold. Anything over 25,000 requires certain wage rates to be compliant. The code also requires anything between 11,000 and that 22,600 receive 3 quotes. Anything under that component, you know, it's been the township's policy under that threshold to just engage a contractor. However, we work to, even if it's co-stars or in those 3 quotes or, you know, areas, we try to get 3 quotes to make sure that we are being responsible to the taxpayers.
Only reason I bring it up. Back. Bidding. Did dollar in-house, what we use. Hire a contractor, we're going out competitive.
It should be in line. I mean, I can check and see if there's a resolution, but we are in line with the state law for compliance. If you want it less than that rate, we can always certainly engage that. But I can tell you, if we're going out to formal bid right now, we're not going to make the install. We're not going to make the gas service. So if that scope of the project, we have to do that, we're going to miss it.
Well, maybe you ever name. That was when Bruce Foster. I forget what the project was, but did set a township rule. Yeah, no, it was the township.
Yeah, Renee, look for me.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? No roads? The compost center, rather. A review agreement with the PA Turnpike for utility-related work for the township widening at East Texas Road. Doug?
Thank you. With the widening of the Turnpike, East Texas Road, there's 2 sewage manholes that the Turnpike is gonna have to, one will be raised, the other one, believe, will be some concrete work. So it's just a part of the agreement that we will provide the riser and the riser for the one, and we will do the adjustments to the standard agreement.
Yeah, and there's a cost. It's $2,800 to have their contractor complete that work as part of the project when the project does happen. That was included in their bid documents. What we have for the board to consider is an agreement with the Turnpike Authority to complete that work. We have that out for review with legal. It's a pretty basic agreement. And we think the cost is in line with, you know, what we would anticipate. As I understand the agreement, they complete the work with their contractor on one. We provide that reimbursement back after we're invoiced. So we have a little bit of time on that project yet. I don't think I don't think it's gonna happen until I think it's fall. So, we just recently got that agreement. We wanted to get it in process, so.
Any questions? And $2,800 is enough to cover putting in 2 manholes?
Apparently that's what came back on their bid, because you are only talking about, raising elevations, so, a couple risers on there. We have to provide the, equipment for the one, so that's what they're telling us their bid came back at.
It seems awful low compared to.
Yeah, yeah,
So do we want to enter into an agreement where we're losing money?
well, we're not, well, we're not, I would say we're not losing money because it's only $2,800. We're actually going to only pay 2,800
getting
to
the bar-
get, yeah, we're getting the bargain, I would say, on that project.
That's why
I don't understand how we're getting a bargain.
Well, you just said you thought it would be more than $2,800, like extensively more. And the work's only $2,800 at that point to do the top of the riser. So we think you're in a good spot to have them mobilized and do that as part of their project. You might have a little cost savings actually with the $2,800. That's the cost of the township, correct?
Yeah, Bruce, I did look at that agreement, started looking at it. I can explain exactly what it says. They're going to be responsible for all the work for both manholes and the materials for one manhole. And the township's just paying for the materials for the other manhole. I think that's what it says, right, Bruce?
Yeah. So with
Yeah.
that $2,800, they fix the other components. There's
Yeah,
two mentioned.
the cost is probably much higher than $2,800. We're only paying $2,800 for a small portion of the materials needed.
Correct.
So we're not providing the labor to install those two?
No, that's part of their job. That's the component. That was in their bid.
Okay.
No, yeah, they're taking care of that part.
Just the material. Any other questions regarding the utility work for the turnpike? Move on.
Sorry, but you said next year, Bruce.
I think it's I think it's a fall of this year. I gotta remember, I think Lower Macungie finishes and then it's after that. I think Lower Macungie, I can't remember if it's late this year and then a 26 construction for East Texas. I think it is. No, it's not as big, but it's still, brand new construction over there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to discussion of policy update for Board of Commissioners committees. Bruce.
Yeah, so Commissioner Higgins, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, notified Renee and I, to potentially have an item for discussion in the township's policy. Um, from a while ago, it establishes, committees from all the way back from 2010, revised in 2016. For those residents that might not be aware, the board did have staff liaisons and committees that met on different nights, parks and facility, roads and sewers, budget and finance, planning and zoning. What I've after I arrived, we kind of asked the board if it was okay if we went to this workshop type format. We thought it was beneficial to have all the commissioners hear about all of the projects and the backgrounds from various things like you've heard tonight, from roads to facility project to planning and zoning type areas. Thought it was a better way at the time to help the board have one conversation that everyone's hearing and be accommodating to those residents that may not be able to make those multiple different evenings. So Commissioner Higgins then said that we have a policy. Maybe we should bring that back in front of the board and see if it's all right if we continue to do the workshop and we would just abolish or amend the policy that says we have the committees, put it back into reserve in case we ever needed to bring it back out. So that's why it's on here. It was something that we haven't been doing for several years now. Of course, on my end, I feel like this is a really good opportunity to have workshops, but we wanted to just get your thoughts and see if you really want to go back to committees or leave the policy or just amend the policy to say at this point, we're moving forward with workshops. If we need to have committees at some point, you guys as a board can always reestablish them and set them back up.
Yeah, I think for me personally, prefer this. I mean, obviously getting a lot more information, as opposed to just the committees, separate committees. But that's my opinion.
Opinion. We get more input. That eliminates commissioners chairing that individual committee, giving reports to the president. So time equals money, saving the township money also.
I agree.
Excellent.
Alrighty,
Good, Brian.
we'll move on to ongoing review of potential of operation agreement for future Mertztown Road Pump Station. Bruce.
Yes, so we've also talked about this on numerous occasions. The last time we updated the board. So I guess all the way back to the history for those that may be hearing this for the first time. The land development that was entered into as a result of the warehouse litigation allowed for the development of 400 dwelling units out on Mertztown Road. As part of that agreed upon settlement, it put an obligation on the township to own and maintain any pump stations that were needed for sewer conveyance as part of that 400 unit development. Of course, it is necessary to have a sewer pump station to move and convey the sewer from that side, the sewage from the development to Cross Spring Creek, and then to access the township's main line that furthers towards 100. So for the township, we used to have pump stations. I think there was, don't quote me on the number, I think there was 5 at some point in the 60s and 70s. The township did work to phase out all of the pump stations over that time period. So as part of that, we now no longer have sewer pump station certified operators and all of the things linked to this component of that operations and maintenance. So the township did work to seek proposals from various companies. I want to say it was in excess of 4 or 5 to operate and maintain the pump station for us. That includes the electrical connection and monitoring of the systems, as well as routine stops and call outs for technicians. Unfortunately, only one vendor responded and was willing to look at the situation. That is the Lehigh County Authority as our partner in sewage conveyance. They are willing to potentially consider an agreement to move forward. We anticipate about 25,000 a year, barring emergency callouts and things of that nature, to have them work through that obligation for us. So we've reached back out to them. We've asked them to work on a draft agreement and what that would look like so we could get that to legal. And legal and myself could review. We think that that pump station probably will be online definitely by the end of the year, not flowing capacity, but probably turned over to the township at that point or the beginning of 2026. So I'm trying to get all my legwork done now. So we're in a good position. So unless anybody thinks we should operate a pump station through the township, I wouldn't recommend that. I don't think at this point. It's not something that we now routinely do. I think this is a good opportunity for that. So we'll prepare an agreement like I said, with the authority, we'll bring it back at some point. I think maybe April, May, and have you gentlemen think about it or consider it.
Any questions on the pump station?
25,000 per pumps, okay.
It's 20, so it's around 22,000, but I estimate a little higher because of the, the potential for emergency call outs or things of that nature. We would be billed on an hourly basis for those types of services. They came up with a proposal for like a basic, weekly check number that they think they'll have in for hours. Generator servicing for what's over there with their contractor. Quarterly annual service. There's things they must do with those type of pumps. And then that electronic, that SCADA as they call it. So they tried to get as best as they could with a fixed amount. They'll have total service for, correct. That is correct. That,
Gave us
forever, in perpetuity, forever. Correct.
contract duration we're looking to get.
I don't have that yet at this point. We can work on those details. I don't know if you're comfortable or they're comfortable with multi-year. I mean, if we could do a 3 or 5 year, we'll see what kind of escalator they would put on for their hourly rate. Of course, that's all driven by their, by their staffing and contracts of that nature. So, we don't have a set duration at this point.
I was gonna bid it.
But didn't you say it was only one bid?
Um,
One response?
They were the only response. We had, Joe Nolan from CKS. Actually, what we looked to do was, package this one with the 6 in Upper Macungie, to see if we could get better volume of, scale, having like 7 pump stations to operate. So what happened was our request for proposals, fell on deaf ears for all of those, potential pump stations to be included, whether that's distance or, just did not want to be engaged. All those contractors that we circled to did not want to respond. At this point, Upper Macungie, as I understand it, has engaged the authority, and they are currently using them. I don't know if they are currently or they're going to them fairly soon, but I believe the first of the year they actually might have transitioned to the LCA side. So unfortunately, no one wanted our volume of scale that we thought we would be bringing, and here we are. Apparently, managing pump stations is a lonely business. So I don't think we'll get any more opportunities, but the LCA. Not to say that that's good or bad, but it's a unique skill set apparently. Correct. The developer is building that, and then they turn it over to the township.
At least the next. Yes, have that built good standard. That it's not a climate. One a Cadillac, the one we're gonna maintain versus, that's one.
Yeah. So there was an agreed upon construction and material equipment, which Engineer Nolan did look at probably 2 years ago now. The developer, when we've asked for certain additional items like the upgrading of that SCADA, as we said, the electronics, they refuse to provide anything more than that minimum. So there may be potential where we have to upgrade certain components so that they talk to the system at LCA. We have the required spec, and that's where it is. They're not willing to adjust anything further on that component. So, yeah, hopefully the original was approved to satisfaction, which with Mr. Nolan, I believe that it was. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are. We have all maintenance and ownership if something would happen to that, and that as it proceeds through construction, there is a special inspector actually for that part of the phase, as I understand it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Manager updates.
Just want to let the board know and the public, we are out requesting proposals for the Park and Recreation Master Plan. The last master plan update was 13 years ago, I believe, maybe a little longer. We thought it was time to update the plan. The plan helps us set the future framework for recreation. As part of this request for proposal that we should receive Friday. We're hopeful that there's interested participants. The next thing that we will do is look at those numbers, review those proposals, and then we're looking to submit in April potential grant funding opportunity with the DCNR. This is one of the things that they look to have updated and established that they provide grant funding for. So we'll use this component of these responses to make sure that we ask for the appropriate amount of grant funding. Hopefully, we may or may not be successful by the end of the year. If we are, would look to ask the board to consider one of these proposals and engage a vendor. If we're not successful, we would still at budget time look to ask the board to continue, move forward, and update the plan. We believe, or I believe at least, having this updated base plan opens the door for us to justify future grant funding for those needs established by an updated plan. So always, this is the first piece of that. The second piece, after it takes us a year probably to get public input and move through the process. So we're looking at probably 27 maybe, if all goes well, for the adoption of that potential plan. And then hopefully we can use those grant opportunities identified in that plan too. So want to let the board know we're not looking to do some form of engagement at this point in the next couple months. However, we're in a long-term planning process now for that. So.
Okay, a question I have is, are there any master plans that are going to be superseded by this? For instance, the Kratzer plan, the Camp Olympic plan, the open space plan, et cetera.
We've identified that we have the plan components in place, all the ones that you've mentioned, and have provided the links to all of those current plans online for the vendors to see. So I would say that there is going to be some carryover. I think that it's going to totally replace things like the Kratzer plan or the Greenway plan right now as it sits. I think there we'll have to engage some of those plans specifically, but I think to look at the 26 park spaces and the open spaces has how we have the RFP listed. That's our base priority now at this point with that. Of course, we could expand that out to look at those various other plans and consolidate and go to one plan. We just know that there are several other plans that are standalone. So it's something the board would like to encourage us to do. We could always look to integrate that Greenway plan and open space plan with the park plan.
Okay, well, I have a problem with having multiple competing plans that all call for spending $50 million here and there and so forth. And so if we end up with just a fifth plan that says, here's where we want to spend $50 million and don't take the other 200 million off the board, then what have we accomplished?
agree with the thought and input. And I think we can, I think if we frame the plan right, we can take those items into consideration and have that update. Hopefully we get good stakeholder feedback, in those discussions that, move us forward to do that. If you look at I know you're familiar, but the residents might not be. If you look at the current plan, it looks at all of the parks. It looks at features of open space. It talks briefly about trail connection. However, the Greenway plan exists as a standalone where, we could make sure that those components kind of integrate in.
The more integration, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
To follow up. Ratchet Park plan, we started that process. Working on the driveway update, the parking lot. Did rough in a path coming off of Bogey last year. So my question is, the Bogey extension, parking up there, and the signage for the path and the maintenance for that path. That was talked about last year, that would happen this year.
It was. I have to check and see where we are. It's a project, Brian. I don't want to misspeak for you, but I know it's something that, we brought back with Brian Cesac in front of the board to make sure we were in a good position on that roadway access point. Yeah, it's on our list to move forward. I'll discuss with Doug on the signage on where that pathway is. Him and I have been out on it already, so, we'll make sure that component kind of gets laid out.
And question about that recent, did invest in that path. That's rated it and seeded it. Line hole coming off of Bogey. Do you have a timeline for that sign going up? There.
I don't. I mean, we can talk about,
It's really unknown
I-
unless somebody hears it.
yeah, we've been trying to have that kind of grow in and get established before we were going to go promote that the pathway was there and available. I think we just did the kind of the site work last year, and that, establishment of the grass, wasn't really as official, where we are, by the time we had the farmer kind of leave that extra space. So, I think if we look at it and check the safety and verify where we are, and we're comfortable with how that's established in, then we can start promoting that trail. We purposely have not been promoting that at all, just because we want that as a basis point to see how that would be. And then we can get moving on that.
That will happen. And the reason I'm talking about it, just broke 60 years old. Started talking about Ratchet really coming. Like to see it before I break 70. Not that far. My wish. Do talk about it every year, and public patiently waited. This was the year of the Kratzer dock, road, parking lot, and the path.
Yeah, and
This is the year we pushed it back. To happen.
well, we budgeted in the 336,000 that was left in the open space, maintenance fund to establish as much as we could with that scope of project. So hopefully that's the roadway and the, parking that was brought in front of the board to get through the funding that was approved, for that project. So the pathway, it's there, it's being maintained. It's just a matter of, are we comfortable at this point with, promoting that as a pathway and trail? And if that's the case, we're able to put the signs up. That's not it's not going to take us a year to do that component. So.
I know that plan and fully went through that. That's an extensive plan. Township got excited about it. It's mentioned on internet meeting all the time. In reality, I know. What originally, oh, what I'm talking about is just a fraction. What we put out there. How long ago was that, Julie? 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we put it out. One heck of a part. Not a little. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Department reports?
Just a kind of heads up on where we are, not to steal, Doug's topic, but we're working to finish the, roadway, paving improvement project, bid spec. That has been floating around from the, engineer's office, and we're, hoping to post that fairly soon. Probably, um, have that back by the end of, March so that we can get that first April award. That's where we're looking. A couple other projects that are moving. The initial flushing and televising lines for the sewer, lining project is occurring at the moment. The stormwater pipe replacement project is in full swing. I've been working on that for about a week now at this point. As expected, what we thought would see, is what's happening in the field. We'll have some pictures for the board, on the, update status on where we are. I know Commissioner Robert, you asked, there is no work going on, Princeton at this point this year. I verified that, so we're at other, various areas, but not there, at this point. Waiting on the, community center, kind of roof, pre-con to happen. There's been initial work there. The contract documents are good to go. Still, on timeline for the, gun club bridge replacement, in, like June. We don't think we'll have an issue with the timeline there. We started a, video review of stormwater, pipe, which has happened, started Tuesday of this week. Various areas to be in line with our, televising program. So, residents will see numerous contractors throughout the township, working to engage those projects. So we are, out and about, and making sure that we're going to have those, completed, hopefully by the end of summer. So.
Hey, backing up on the Kratzer farm. Vincent. That had to be done. Thank you, Ben. Expected, but could have been a dangerous situation. Quickly. So, all these questions now, that's positive. Thank you both. Thank you to the whole crew. Vince.
Well, and that's the next thing we're looking at, and I want to just make sure we updated. There is a, little, shed-esque type structure down off of Willow Lane, on township, property that was, turned over to the township as part of the, Greenway Trail Plan, by a gentleman, sold that, area to the township. It included his old wood shop. We were going to try to save, it's in the floodplain area. We were going to try to save that structure somehow. After review by Public Works and the code office, we think it's a better opportunity. We're going to have to, take that structure down, both for the safety and the, kind of where it is, what we want to do maybe in the footprint in its place, or, if we can save kind of a roof pavilion type with potential, some posts down there to have something if the pathway comes through. We don't think that it's a good taxpayer opportunity to put dollars, maybe 8 or 10,000 just to stabilize and get it buttoned on the existing component. So, that team has been down there, within the last week or so. We're adding it to the list, to kind of address and take care of. Wanted to make sure the board didn't have any issues, prior, to our game plan of, engaging and getting that out. So we just don't think we can save it. We don't think it's, a good opportunity to put dollars in. So we're gonna try to get it removed and see what we can have left over there.
Yeah, I think a part of that with the pavilion, you could mitigate some of the flooding that's current hazard that's currently there with the building and other things.
You had mentioned, billion.
We would think if anything, right, is it the intention or does the board have any consideration to leave anything there at all? If it is for future, we know in the removal of the current shed in the floodplain, it once we take it out and we remove it, we'll never be able to put anything back in there at this point. As Vince just mentioned, removing that and leaving some of those support columns for a potential roof in there definitely opens up the floodplain and the floodway for that, making it a little more efficient. But it also would leave something there in case we ever get to the component of building that trail pathway to Willow Lane and behind that community, kind of as a stopping point. So that's why we propose kind of just something that's there, whether it be pergola or something of that component.
That's the intent.
It,
The pavilion.
if we,
You're-
if we can. If not, we might just have to put some posts in and put a roof on. Instead of taking that 8-10 grand to fix the building that's there, put that 8 or 10 grand into something that might be a little more worthwhile. So,
I would prefer to see a pavilion there rather than tear it down and never put anything back.
okay.
Because that is in the greenway, part of the walking path.
Correct. Proposed future walking path. Yeah. So. Yeah, so I can describe where it is. If you're familiar with where the bridge is on existing Willow, if you're coming from Sauerkraut Lane on the right-hand side, when you right before you come before the bridge, that used to be the existing Willow Lane that kind of cuts off there. At the end of that component, prior to the river, there's some houses back in there, and that roadway dead ends. All that road segment dead ends. It's driveways basically now. So basically, Rising River would be to the north. To the south of the river is this area where is envisioned the trail path would go east, back behind the housing plan. And that's where the gentleman actually had his house and his workshop. To get between the river and the houses that are there in the driveway, the township did acquire that, 10 years ago now, prior to my arrival, gifted to us.
Well, actually, we bought it for the tax price, which was $14,000.
Hill. Existing walking path. John Fry's Boulevard, that development, that hits a dead end. Off John Fry's.
Mm.
Gonna put a switchback trail, the Lighthouser property. Old Willow Lane. Up. Southeast. Up through that giant open space. But that was, for example,
Yeah, and I think, while we're talking trails and pathways too, I think it's important to note that the trail and pathway plan that we saw not too long ago, we had kind of envisioned the phasing where we come out of this building, where we go over Wild Cherry, where we look at, um, Princeton and that area. Part of it was to mirror the top of um, the LCA sewer line in that area with the potential sewer. I don't want to say expansion, but sewer bypass line for the LCA. We've kind of looked at the vision of putting those pathways on top of that future newly installed line that might happen in another 10 or 15 years. Um, and now we have to be mindful that that work is still targeted to happen, but I've expressed to the authority that we do have a trail master plan happening, but to lay things down like at Spring Creek, to lay things down out of the back of this building, and be over top of that line, both for access for the authority plus a trail plan. We don't want to do redundant work and waste money and have them dig it back up and put the line in. So we're trying to get more details from that partnership, and that's sometimes why we are in a hold on certain things that we've talked about, and we haven't pushed forward. So just a kind of a comment about trails and pathways on that note, especially when they're near the LCA sewer line, which is where most of the greenway is. So.
Trail on Brookside at Princeton. That's the new one that goes back to the new playground.
Correct.
Was that anything gonna be done on west side? That's on the homes there. All that open space.
The on the west side component. Yeah, he was. We're still looking at the crosswalk. Brian's working through permitting on that project. We also are looking, and we've told staff at the opportunity to potentially have that connected to a potential development on the corner of Lower Macungie and Brookside to cross the river and have that kind of integrated and take that footpath up towards the light at the Shell station. So we feel that that's a connectivity point there to get out of that neighborhood across the stream and up towards the northern part of the township with that connection. So uh, we had the trail component. We're looking at the crossing for Brookside right now still, making sure we can get that permitted.
Okay, one more question. That bridge on Brookside heading north up toward the Shell station, there was
No, we didn't talk about that one.
currently
But yeah, I mean, it's
this.
it's a, it's a PennDOT bridge. Trying to get their approval to do extra stuff on that. But, they're not planning on replacing it. It was never pursued very much there, but we can put in pedestrian paths on either side of Brookside Road, crossing the creek, to be able to get further along without bothering the bridge.
While we're talking bridges, I think it's important to note, I didn't have this on the agenda. We've been asked, Mark's actually looking at it for me as well, what our liability is. With the future reconstruction of the Hamilton Boulevard Turnpike Bridge, there is a question from the from the Turnpike project engineers, if the township would like to see connectivity with a sidewalk, from on the southern end of that bridge, from mine site over towards Brookside Road. For us, we want to make sure there's a requirement by the Turnpike that if they build and construct that, that becomes, of course, a PennDOT maintenance, and PennDOT then turns over the maintenance of sidewalks to the township, that we would be responsible in perpetuity for both its snow removal as well as maintenance. So, of course, the township doesn't want to obligate ourselves into that side of it. We've had Mark look to research the ability to have the township require abutting property owners to maintain the sidewalk and its maintenance. We would have to amend our sidewalk ordinance to allow for that. But I believe, Mark, unless I'm misspeaking, that is something that we would be able to do and update.
We would have to update. It's a weird, unique sidewalk because unlike most sidewalks, when you use the word abut, it is running across the front of their property. This would actually be running next to their property and continue outside their property. So it's a somewhat unique sidewalk.
So we want to just make sure that we don't have that or have the ability to potentially amend that sidewalk ordinance for the care and maintenance of that. But we need to provide an answer to the Turnpike Authority. I prefer the one that gives us the least liability for future in perpetuity maintenance and liability. So we understand the corridor, as part of the Hamilton Boulevard study on multimodal and transportation, as well as sidewalk plan that we have, designates Hamilton Boulevard as a walkable, connected area. So we're going to do our best to see how we can facilitate that component with this future bridge that is going to happen in 9 or 10 years. So, yeah, about 10 years, their initial design at this point, wanting to know our feedback. So,
Any other questions or comments?
and that's all I have on my end, unless anybody else has a departmental report or a question.
Public comments? Okay, it is 7:08. We are adjourned. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Mark. Brian.